Jesus is a healer. Our gospel accounts tell us that his presence and his actions transform people's bodies. He cures those who are sick with diseases. He casts out evil spirits. He changes the abilities of those who are blind or deaf or unable to walk. Sometimes Jesus is petitioned, and sometimes he asks for permission. Sometimes Jesus uses spit and mud, something just a simple touch, and sometimes just words. The stories are all a little different, but our scriptures make it very clear Jesus is a healer. People come from far and near not only to receive his wisdom, but to witness what he can do and to receive his help. In today's story, Jesus is once again surrounded by a crowd, and two people come to him as a last resort in utter desperation. First, Jesus meets Jairus, a leader in the synagogue, and this respected elder falls to his knees and begs, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." Jairus repeats himself over and over. This is his one chance. And Jesus agrees to go with him. But before they can reach Jairus' daughter, they must go through the crowd that has been following Jesus, the crowd that is still pressing in upon him. And among those many clamoring for attention is a woman who has been hemorrhaging for 12 years. She has tried other healers. There have been so many visits to so many physicians who took her money but offered no help. She has heard about Jesus, and so she joins the crowd. And as he passes, she takes her chance and reaches out to touch his cloak. These two people are so different. One, a man with power, kneels and begs. He is frantic and he humbles himself, and yet he knows that his relative wealth and status, education, may gain him attention among the many in the crowd. The other, perhaps once a woman of wealth, is now poor. She has been taken advantage of by physicians who did not really listen, perhaps, or at least could not address her need. She has been religiously, culturally impure for 12 years, unable to touch anyone, totally isolated from her community. I imagine her so tired and broken in body and spirit. Not expecting that she would even be granted an audience, defying rules just by being present in this crowd, she grabs the opportunity she can find. Fistful of Jesus' cloak. Both of these seekers demand something from Jesus, and who could find fault with them? If your child is dying, of course you will use whatever power you have to try and save them. If no one will give you what you need, of course you will reach out and try to take it instead. What is remarkable is not the choices that they make, but that Jesus meets both of them where they are. For the woman who has been dismissed and ignored because of her illness for years, Jesus offers recognition and connection. He seeks her out in the crowd and looks into her eyes. He listens as she tells him the whole truth of her experience. Then he calls this woman, cast out from society and never given a name in our scriptures, he calls her a daughter. So instead of administering punishment for her audacity, Jesus recognizes her as family and tells her to go in peace and to be healed. Then Jesus goes on. Summoned, he leaves his place of teaching and goes all the way to Jairus' house. And they hear that in his delay tending to this other woman, Jairus' daughter has died. But he tells Jairus not to fear and goes into the house with only the daughter's parents, the 3 disciples, dismissing all the crowds. He takes this little girl's hand and says, Talitha cum, which means little girl, get up, or little lamb also. And she opens her eyes and gets up. Jesus is a healer. And perhaps there have been times in your life when you have felt Jesus' presence as you were healed physically or spiritually. And perhaps there have been times when you felt like one of those other folks in the crowd that day, carrying your own story, breathless with your own desperation, and yet somehow never able to get close enough to get Jesus' attention or to receive the help that you need. We use dangerous language about sickness and disability in the church and beyond. Some say that everything that happens is God's will, whether good or bad. Some think, perhaps subconsciously, that everything that happens is due to our merit or our mistakes. We can find a few seeds of this belief in this text. Jesus says to the woman, "Your faith has made you well." But God does not punish or reward us in this way. It is not because of our faults that we have illnesses or accidents or differences in ability. And no matter how good we are, how hard we believe, sometimes we do not receive whatever it is that we most want for ourselves or for our loved ones. Jesus is not here today in a way that he can explain to us the mysteries that surround healing. If Jesus can heal, why didn't he heal everyone on that day with that crowd or here with us today? We only know what we can observe. Sometimes healings happen, healings of the body and healings of the spirit. Sometimes the presence of God is palpable in those experiences. And sometimes bodies and minds and spirits do not heal in the ways that we long for them to heal. Despite all that we do not understand, one thing is clear. In our difficulties, as we draw near to Jesus, Jesus is present with us, no matter what our station or situation. If we are important in the eyes of the world or unnoticed or excluded, Jesus is with us. If we come before him on our knees to beg, or if we grab the hem of his garment as he goes by, or if we are caught in the back of the crowd, Jesus is with us. If we suffer in our bodies and our minds and our spirits, when we suffer on behalf of someone else, Jesus is with us. Jesus is searching for us and wanting to connect, eager to hear our whole story. Jesus will listen for as long as it takes and hold our hand through the long watches of the night. Jesus will weep with us when it is a time for weeping and rejoice with us when it is a time for rejoicing. This may not be the kind of good news that you are longing for. And yet, this healing power of Jesus persists and it is here for you and for me. Please pray with me. Holy God, there are mysteries far too great for our minds, and suffering almost too much for our hearts to bear. Help us to ask, to reach, to show up anyway, sharing the fullness of our longing with you. Help us to feel the kindness of your gaze, the warmth of your hand, the depth of your compassion, the steadfast nature of your companionship. May we receive from you a love so great that it carries us through whatever comes and allows us to offer our hands in comfort to others who suffer. Amen.